The smell of industrial air freshener clung to everything like a second skin. I wiped the table with a rag, while another consciousness slowly pushed into my mind. It was taking over, inch by inch. So this was where the original owner had been living. A sharp female voice cut through the noise of the fast food restaurant. I looked up. 5 people were standing at the entrance. A middle-aged man in a tailored suit. A middle-aged woman in expensive jewelry, her eyes red. 2 young women in designer outfits, their faces full of disgust. They looked like they wanted to be 3 meters away from this greasy place. In the middle, like a treasure being protected, stood a good-looking young man in a soft knit sweater. His hands were empty. Their worry was perfectly performed. These people didn't belong in a crowded, dirty fast food place. They looked like peacocks that wandered into a slum. Memories flooded in, and I fully understood everything. I was no longer the office worker who died from overwork after 72 straight hours. I was Liu Yen, the real biological son in this melodramatic family recognition story. These people standing in front of me were my blood relatives, whom I'd never met. They had finally come to claim me. And also the fake son, Wen Yu, who had stolen my life. The so-called family love they talked about was thin and worthless. The one who spoke first was the second sister, Wen Man. She pinched her nose, her delicate brows tightly knit. Her face looked pained, as if breathing the restaurant air would poison her. Look at you, a poor and pathetic loser. You're an embarrassment to the Wen name. The eldest sister, Wen Shu, was more restrained. But the coldness in her eyes hurt more than any scolding. Without a word, she pulled a card from her limited edition handbag and threw it onto the table I had just wiped. Her movements were full of contempt, like tossing coins to a beggar on the street. There's 100,000 in this. Spend it carefully. Take the money, don't cause trouble, and don't embarrass the Wen family. My father, Wen Junbang, stood silently. His expression was gloomy. His eyes swept over my faded t-shirt and stained apron, then landed on me. He wasn't looking at his long-lost son. He was inspecting defective merchandise. My mother, Shinhuiru, dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, her voice choked with sobs. Xiao Yan, my poor child. How did you end up like this? Come home with me. Let me make it up to you. Wen Yu, who had been protected in the middle, stepped forward. His voice was gentle and soft, his guilt and remorse perfectly performed. Brother, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. If I hadn't taken your place, none of this would have happened. Brother, if you need money, I can give you all my allowance. Mom, Dad, sisters, don't be hard on him. His eyes were slightly red, his expression sincere and moving. I stood there with the rag in my hand, my expression unreadable. I quietly watched this family put on their show. The original owner's lingering hopes and pain churned in my mind. I crushed those illusions without mercy. He had grown up in an orphanage, hungry, cold, and bullied. He got into college through scholarships and loans, working 3 jobs to pay for food and tuition. Where were these blood relatives all those years? Now, just as he was about to graduate and stand on his own, they showed up late, putting on a tearful reunion. Ridiculous. I slapped the rag into the bucket, cutting off Wen Yu's unfinished lines. I get off at 5. If you have something to say, wait until I'm done. My tone was flat and calm. The whole family froze. They clearly hadn't expected this response. Wen Man's face turned red with anger. What did you say? You want us to wait for you? I couldn't be bothered to look at them again. I turned and walked to another greasy table. I'm at work. Wen Yu looked hurt by my attitude. He bit his lower lip, his expression even more pitiful. Shinhuiru cried harder. Wen Jinbang frowned and let out a heavy snort. Fine. We'll wait. And so, this well-dressed family squeezed into the noisy, greasy fast food place. They endured the curious stares of other customers, fuming, for an entire hour. I just kept working. The Wen family villa was extremely luxurious. Gold-plated gates, a double-height lobby, crystal chandeliers. It was so opulent it hurt my eyes. I stood on the shiny marble floor in my cheap clothes, like a homeless man who wandered into a palace. Wen Jinbang's patience was long gone. Shinhuira had stopped crying, only her red eyes remained. They both acted as if they had fulfilled their duty of claiming their son. Wen Jinbang tapped on his phone for a moment. My old, broken phone buzzed. A bank notification popped up. 100,000 yuan had been transferred. I thought to myself, free money isn't bad. But my face showed nothing. I quietly put the phone back in my pocket. Shinhuira's lips moved, like she wanted to say something. But she just turned her face away. Wen Jinbang spoke. If you need anything, tell your mother. Let a man, and a shoe show you around the house. With that, the couple hurried upstairs, as if every extra second here was torture. As soon as they left, the atmosphere in the living room shifted completely. Wen Shu crossed her arms, looking down at me. There are rules in this house. Since you're here, follow them. Don't bring your bad habits in. Breakfast is at 7, don't be late. The study on the second floor and the East Wing suite are Dad and a used space. Don't go wandering in there. Watch your behavior. Don't embarrass the Wen family in public. When Man jumped in, her malice undisguised. Look at you, all dirty. Go upstairs and shower. We put you in the servant's room. Don't walk around the main house too much. You're an eyesore. Wen Yu's voice was still soft and soothing. But every word was like a blade wrapped in silk. Brother, my sisters just want you to adjust well. They don't want you to feel wronged. If there's anything you don't understand, just ask me. You can use my things first. There was pity in his eyes, and a sense of superiority he thought he hid well. I met his gaze directly, then looked down. I gave a vague, perfunctory response, like listening to a salesperson pitch a product. I found it funny. This whole family was completely self-absorbed. My indifferent attitude really set Wen Man and Wen Shu off. They glared at me a few times and stormed upstairs. Now only Wen Yu and I were left in the large living room. Wen Yu's warm facade dropped instantly. All that was left was naked disgust and smug satisfaction. He leaned in, his voice low, almost whispering in my ear, dripping with malice. Pathetic waste. See all this? Parents' love, sisters' protection, a comfortable life. All mine. You can't take any of it. Even if you're back, you're still a beggar. You only get the scraps I throw away. Be smart, take the money and get out. I glanced at him flatly. My mood was so indifferent it was almost bored, like watching a clown perform. I'm going to my room. Wen Yu trembled with anger at my reaction. His face turned pale. He stared at my back as I walked away. The so-called servant's room was in a corner on the first floor. It was small, damp, and smelled of mold from being closed up for so long. Wen Yu's fingers were cold and gripped me hard, almost digging into my skin. I instinctively tried to pull away. His cold, venomous whisper reached my ears alone. You'll never beat me, beggar. As soon as he said it, Wen Yu let go. A shrill scream pierced the air. His body leaned back dramatically, and he tumbled down the stairs, crashing onto the marble floor. The thuds and groans echoed through the villa. Downstairs, Wen Shu and Wen Man were setting the table. They looked up at the sound. They watched their beloved Wen Yu roll down the stairs, curled up on the floor, a big bump on his forehead. When Man screamed. Her eyes were like arrows, fixed on me standing at the top of the stairs. Lu Yan! What did you do to a you? Get out! Get out of the Wen house! When you lay on the floor, crying, barely breathing. But he still managed to speak, deliberately defending me. No, sister, it's not brother's fault. I slipped. Brother didn't push me. That defense only made me look guiltier. When Shu rushed to help When Man pointed at the door, shaking with rage. Get out! The Wen family has no room for someone as vicious as you. Leave now! I stood at the top of the stairs, watching the farce coldly. Wen Yu's acting was clumsy and over the top. But the two sisters saw nothing. Their bias was obvious. The corner of my mouth twitched, but my face showed no emotion. When Man shouted again, telling me to get out. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the crying and screaming clearly. I suggest you check the security footage before you make up your mind. With that, I didn't bother looking at these drama queens again. I calmly walked down the stairs, stepped around Wen Yu on the floor, and headed for the front door. When Man and Wen Shu followed, yelling and blocking me. Wen Yu sat on the floor, sobbing dramatically. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, I heard Wen Shu lower her voice and call an ambulance. In the background noise, I caught her unguarded words, a hint of triumph in them. She was saying that even if they wanted to get rid of the country bumpkin, he didn't have to actually hurt himself falling down the stairs. Didn't it hurt? A cold smirk curled on my lips. Self-harm, a frame-up, just to kick me out. To get rid of the inconvenient biological son. I pushed the door open. The cold night wind rushed in, cutting me off from the fake warmth and luxury inside. After a moment's hesitation, I walked to the curb and hailed a taxi, heading straight back to my university dorm. The next day, my life went back to normal. Classes, part-time jobs, the library. A steady routine, busy and full. The 100,000 from the Wen family sat in my account, just a number. I relied on scholarships, loans, and my own work to get by. I took a small portion of my savings and put them into some short-term investments. The returns weren't huge. Half a month passed quietly. No one from the Wen family contacted me. It was like I never existed. I enjoyed the peace. That night, after finishing my shift, I walked back to my dorm, tired. Under a streetlight near the dorm building, 3 figures blocked my path. Wen Yu sat in a wheelchair, covered in bandages and plaster. His face was pale, looking fragile and broken. The moment he saw me, his eyes turned red. He struggled to stand up, his voice shaking and tearful. Brother, you're finally back. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I messed everything up. Please come home with me. Mom and Dad miss you so much. When Man stood behind the wheelchair, arms crossed. Her look at me was full of contempt. She snapped impatiently. Lu Yan, Ayu is begging you like this. What more do you want? Don't be so ungrateful. The eldest sister, Wen Shu, stood a bit further away. She watched silently, her gaze sharp and searching, complicated. The security camera near the stairs had conveniently malfunctioned. She didn't say it out loud, but she didn't fully believe Wen Yu's story either. I stopped and looked at the 3 of them. It was absurd. Wen Yu kept crying, his performance flawless. Brother, the family needs you. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have taken your place. If you just come home, I'll give up anything. Enough, I said. My voice had a chill to it, carried by the night wind. Fake son, your act is too much. Wen Yu's crying stopped abruptly. The sad expression froze on his tear-streaked face. When Man frowned. What right do you have to call him a fake son? I ignored Wen-man. My gaze fell on Wen-yu's plastered leg. I raised an eyebrow. It's been half a month since you fell down the stairs. And the cast is still on. Did the Wen family hire a quack? The sarcasm was clear. Wen-yu's face turned even paler. His tears flowed harder, like he was suffering some great injustice. I let out a cold snort and turned to walk around them. Stop! Wen-shu finally spoke. Her tone was low and cold. Lu Yen, apologize to you. Come back with us. Father said you have to come back. I looked back at her, as if I'd heard something ridiculous. To me, the Wen family is worthless. How dare you? Wen-man shrieked. Just as the tension peaked, a sharp, spoiled voice cut in. Oh, Wen-yu, this is lively. Is this your family's useless real son? A flashy red sports car was parked by the curb. A young woman in trendy clothes stepped out. Her makeup was perfect, and she walked over slowly. It was Jiang Ning, Wen-yu's childhood sidekick. Their families had business ties, and they'd had an informal engagement since they were kids. She was Wen-yu's loyal supporter. Jiang Ning walked up to the wheelchair familiarly and linked her arm with Wen-yu's. Her eyes raked over me from head to toe, critical and scornful. Decent looking, I guess. But your whole vibe is like you crawled out of a dumpster. Lu Yen, have some self-awareness. Wen-yu is the one who deserves the Wen family status. He was raised with the best. What makes you think you can compete with him? Crawl back to the gutter you came from. I couldn't help but smirk at her rambling. A bunch of empty, illogical words. My gaze swept past Jiang Ning and landed on Wen-shu and Wen-yu. Does your family pick heirs in reverse order of IQ? Otherwise, why would you keep company with people like this? What did you say? Jiang Ning bristled like an angry cat. Wen-shu's face darkened. Wen-yu's expression was strained. I was done with this circus. I pulled out my phone and made a transfer right in front of everyone. Asterisk ding. Asterisk. Wen-yu's phone buzzed with a notification. He instinctively checked it. His face froze. It was a bank notice. I had transferred the full 100,000 back. The memo read medical expenses and tips. No need to thank me. I put my phone away, my expression cold and detached. The Wen family's money is disgusting. And by the way, you're not kicking me out. I enunciated each word clearly. I don't want you. Don't bother me again. With that, I didn't linger. I walked straight to the dorm entrance, my back straight, and disappeared into the shadows. Under the streetlight, the others stood frozen. Light and shadow flickered across their faces. Wen-yu clutched his phone. The transfer notification burned in his hand like a brand. My words, I don't want you, hung in the air like a silent slap. Jiang Ning broke the silence first, her shrill voice trying to cover her panic. What's with the act? Who knows where that money came from? Probably saved up from some lousy job. Just trying to save face. Shut up. Wen-shu cut her off coldly. Her gaze was fixed on the dorm entrance where I'd disappeared. Her brows were furrowed. She kept replaying my cold indifference in her mind. And that memo, medical expenses and tips. The 100,000 the Wen family had given me. I hadn't kept a cent. The reality didn't match the tearful version Wen-yu had fed her. Wen-yu noticed Wen-shu's suspicious look. His heart sank. He was afraid his carefully constructed lies were about to fall apart. He coughed hard and weakly slumped back into his wheelchair, his voice faint. Sister, don't blame brother. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have come here and upset him. Let's go back. I feel cold. He immediately redirected everyone's attention. Jiang Ning hurriedly chimed in, fixing his collar and urging them to go home and rest. Wen Shu took a deep breath, trying to push down her unease. She looked at the dorm building one more time, her eyes full of unresolved questions. Finally, she nodded. They helped Wen Yu into the car. Before getting in, she glanced back once more at the dorm entrance, troubled. In the following days, my life returned to peace. Classes, part-time work, the library. I'd occasionally check on my small investments. On campus, I'd run into Jiang Ning. She was determined to defend Wen Yu. Every time she saw me, she'd either roll her eyes dramatically or make snide remarks to her friends. Some people can dress up all they want, but they're still cheap at heart. A pheasant can never become a phoenix. I treated it all as background noise. I just found it amusing. Every one of her provocations failed. I could feel her frustration, her anger at swinging and missing every time. The school hosted a public lecture on finance. They invited a well-known industry analyst. I sat in the back row, taking notes. Jiang Ning and Wen Yu sat in the front. Wen Yu was still in his wheelchair, his legs still in a cast. He attracted plenty of sympathetic looks from students. During the Q&A, the analyst posed a controversial market case and asked if anyone wanted to share their thoughts. Jiang Ning's eyes lit up. Without waiting for the teacher to call on anyone, she spoke up loudly. Professor, let Wen Yu speak. He's top of our department, and his family runs a business. He definitely has unique insights. She shot a smug look back at me. The challenge was unmistakable. The spotlight fell on Wen Yu. He put on a humble act, pretending to decline, then spoke. His tone was gentle and proper. His analysis sounded reasonable. A few followers and easily impressed students clapped politely. The analyst nodded and said he had a solid foundation. Jiang Ning looked even more pleased with herself. Then the analyst's gaze swept the room. It landed on me, quiet but focused in the back. The student in the back. You seem to have a different opinion. Would you like to share? I snapped out of it. Jiang Ning's face fell, like she'd swallowed a fly. Wen Yu's hand on the wheelchair armrest tightened. I put down my pen and stood up, speaking steadily. Professor, that analysis missed several key variables. 1. The policy window carries hidden risks that the market is currently underestimating. 2. The cost optimization substitution effect for core raw materials won't fully materialize in the next 2 quarters. 3. Short-term international hot money has shifted its preference. Their logic differs from domestic capital. They can't be lumped together. A simple bullish or bearish view is too simplistic. Hedging in the short-term volatility would be a better choice, but it requires strong execution and risk management. My presentation was clear and calm. The points I raised had only recently been discussed in top international journals. Not many people in the country knew about them yet. The classroom was dead silent. The analyst's eyes lit up. He leaned forward slightly. Good. Tell us more about your hedging strategy. What factors did you consider? I didn't hesitate. I drew on my research experience from my previous life, combined with the information I'd gathered in this world. I laid out the entire logic concisely and completely. When I finished, the analyst couldn't help but applaud. Young man, your market insight is excellent. What's your name? Interested in an internship at our firm? Murmurs spread through the room. Everyone looked at me with surprise and curiosity. I smiled politely. Thank you, Professor. My name is Lu Yen. I'll seriously consider the internship offer. As I sat back down, I could feel 2 sharp glares boring into me from the front. Jiang Ning's face was bright red. Her earlier smugness was gone. When Yu had his head down, his expression hard to read. His clenched jaw gave away his frustration. A few days later, I was working at a decent coffee shop. It was my highest-paying part-time job. The place was nice, and most customers were well-mannered. I was carrying a hand-brewed coffee to a table when the doorbell chimed. "Welcome," I said out of habit, looking up. Jiang Ning walked in, arm in arm with a middle-aged woman in expensive clothes. That was Jiang Ning's mother. Jiang Ning spotted me in my server uniform. A glint of calculation flashed in her eyes. She deliberately raised her voice, her saccharine tone carrying across the shop. "Mom, look! That's the Wen family's real son. He insists on working here as a server, says he's experiencing life." Her mockery was obvious. Jiang Ning's mother looked me over without hiding her disdain. Like she was inspecting a defective product. She let out a haughty snort. "Low-class upbringing. He'll never learn any decency. Stay away from us. What bad luck." My expression didn't change. I set the coffee down steadily and gave a slight bow. "Your coffee. Enjoy." I completely ignored the mother and daughter. Jiang Ning looked frustrated, like she'd punched air. She dragged her mother to sit in my section. Then she started nitpicking everything. The water was bland. The drink was the wrong temperature. The background music was too loud. I handled it all professionally and calmly. My responses were flawless and composed. It only made Jiang Ning look like a spoiled brat throwing a tantrum. Even her mother's expression tightened. She clearly found her daughter's behavior embarrassing. The coffee shop door opened again. When she walked in, dressed in a Chanel suit. She looked like she was here for a business meeting. Her eyes swept the room. She saw Jiang Ning and her mother. Then she saw me serving them. She stopped. Her brow furrowed. Seeing her own blood relative working as a server clearly hurt her pride. Jiang Ning spotted Wen Shu and waved her over. Wen Shu hesitated, then walked over. Jiang Ning immediately started complaining, her voice full of grievance. "Shu, look at Lu Yan. He insists on working here. Mom and I can't even enjoy a quiet cup of coffee without him giving us the cold shoulder." I brought over their desserts. I didn't even look up. I set the plates down and turned to leave. "Stop." Wen Shu's voice was cold and commanding. "Lu Yan, aren't you ashamed? You're embarrassing the Wen family. Quit this job right now and come home with me." I stopped and turned to face her. My eyes were calm. "What does the Wen family have to do with me?" "You." Wen Shu was speechless. Jiang Ning's mother interjected. "Wen Shu, I don't usually meddle, but this child's manners are severely lacking. He needs to be disciplined. Otherwise, he'll only keep dragging down the Wen family's reputation." Wen Shu's face grew darker. Just then, an elderly man walked out of one of the private rooms. He was about 60, sharp and energetic, wearing a traditional Chinese tunic suit. His presence commanded authority without him saying a word. A secretary followed behind him. This was Fu Chongshan, the head of the Fu family, the most powerful family in the province. The Fu family's business empire far surpassed the Wen family. The old man walked over slowly. His gaze landed on me. Then it turned to Wen Shu and Jiang Ning's mother. His voice was calm but carried undeniable weight. "Earning a living through honest work is nothing to be ashamed of. It's far more dignified than certain people who waste their parents' wealth and trample on others' labor." He didn't name anyone. But Jiang Ning and her mother's faces turned bright red. Wen Shu froze. She recognized Fu Chongshan. She never expected him to speak up for me. Fu Chongshan's gaze returned to me, softening slightly. This young man is unshaken by praise or blame. That kind of composure is rare. With that, Fu Chongshan left with his secretary. Jiang Ning and her mother stood frozen, their faces burning like they'd been publicly humiliated. Wen Shu stared at my back, dazed. Fu Chongshan's words echoed in her mind. She instinctively compared me to the fuming Jiang Ning, and to Wen Yu, who was always playing the pitiful victim. The beliefs she'd held for so long started to crumble. Maybe she had been wrong about her brother who grew up outside the family. Jiang Ning's nails dug into her palms. Shame and resentment burned inside her. She couldn't even deny it anymore. She wasn't even worthy of being my opponent. The atmosphere in the coffee shop was suffocating. Wen Shu's mind was in turmoil. Confusion and guilt mixed together. Fu Chongshan had publicly shown his appreciation for me. I had returned the 100,000. I had given that brilliant analysis at the lecture. None of it was coincidence. Jiang Ning's voice trembled as she tugged at Wen Shu's arm. Who was that old man? Why did he help Lu Yen? Fu Chongshan. Wen Shu's voice was hoarse. At the name, Jiang Ning and her mother gasped. Their arrogance vanished, replaced by fear. The Jiang family depended on the Wen family's support. The Fu family was so far above them they couldn't even dream of latching on. They had just publicly mocked someone Fu Chongshan valued. The consequences could be disastrous. Wen Shu ignored them. Her mind was a mess. She grabbed her bag and rushed out of the coffee shop. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the Wen house was strange. When you noticed the subtle shift in Wen Shu's attitude, he acted even more fragile and obedient. He'd often look at Wen Jinbang and Shen Huiru with tear-filled eyes, hinting that my presence made him uneasy. His act worked. Wen Jinbang's impression of me grew worse. But this time, Wen Shu didn't rush to defend Wen Yu. She just watched silently. Soon, the Wen family received a gilded invitation. Fu Chongshan was hosting a private dinner at his mansion to celebrate a major project. Almost every influential figure in the province was invited. The Wen family was on the list. This was a rare opportunity for them to break into a higher social circle. Wen Jinbang took it very seriously. He ordered the whole family to dress formally and not make any mistakes. Shen Huiru looked worriedly at Wen Yu, still in his cast. Wen Yu forced a weak smile. Mom, I'm fine. I can't let this important event be ruined because of me. He paused, hesitating. Brother Lu Yen, he's part of the family too. Should we invite him? Wen Man immediately scoffed. Invite him? To embarrass us in public? If he makes a fool of himself in front of the Fu family, we'll all suffer. Wen Jinbang's face darkened. He agreed completely. But Wen Shu suddenly spoke up. Call him. Everyone turned to look at her. Wen Shu avoided Wen Yu's suddenly dimmed gaze. She kept her voice steady. Mr. Fu seemed to like him last time. If Mr. Fu asks about him and we didn't invite him, it'll be awkward. Wen Jinbang thought for a moment and nodded. He waved his hand. Shu, you contact him. Tell him to behave, keep quiet, and stay close to us. I was in the library at the time. Wen Shu called. When I heard it was a Fu family dinner, I was about to refuse. But she added that Fu Chongshan would be there. I paused. Fu Chongshan was the old man who had defended me at the coffee shop. I'd been wanting to access higher-level information and networks. This dinner was an opportunity. As for the Wen family drama, I didn't care. Send me the time and address. My words were brief. Wen Shu let out a relieved breath on the other end. But she still had to remind me. Dress formally. Don't cause trouble for the Wen family. I hung up. The night of the dinner, the Fu mansion was ablaze with lights. Guests mingled everywhere. The Wen family arrived. Wen Yu was in his wheelchair, pale and fragile. Wen Shu and Wen Man wore elegant gowns. Wen Jinbang and Shen Huiru were impeccably dressed. I followed behind them into the hall. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. I wasn't wearing the expensive suit the Wen family had prepared. I wore my best outfit, a simple dark blazer and trousers. The fabric was ordinary, the cut simple. Surrounded by guests and designer clothes and jewels, I didn't stand out. But I stood tall, without any hint of shrinking back. My gaze swept the room calmly, like I was observing everything objectively. Jiang Ning was nearby, arm in arm with a date. She spoke loudly enough for those around her to hear. TSK, does he think this is a campus mixer? Her companions covered their mouths and giggled. When you glanced at me, a flicker of darkness crossed his eyes. He quickly replaced it with a fragile expression and whispered to Wen Man. Second sister, just be glad brother came. Don't be too hard on him. Wen Man was clearly unhappy. Wen Jinbang saw my outfit and felt like I was dragging down the family's image. He gritted his teeth and warned me in a low voice. Stay close to us. Don't talk. I acted like I didn't hear him. My eyes were on Fu Chongshan, who was across the hall talking with someone. Fu Chongshan noticed us. More specifically, he noticed me. He ended his conversation and walked straight over to the Wen family. Wen Jinbang was overjoyed. He quickly stepped forward and extended his hand. Mr. Fu, good evening. Thank you for dash. Fu Chongshan just nodded politely. His gaze passed over Wen Jinbang and landed on me. He smiled. Xiao Lu, you came. Good. Just those simple words. The whispers around us stopped instantly. Everyone looked at me in shock. Wen Jinbang's smile froze. Shen Huiru looked lost. Wen Shu's heart raced. Wen Yu and Jiang Ning's eyes widened. Their mocking remarks died in their throats. Wen Yu's fingers dug into the wheelchair armrest. I stepped forward, neither proud nor servile. Mr. Fu, good evening. Thank you for the invitation. Young man, we barely got to talk last time. I'd love to continue our conversation about market insights tonight. A few old friends of mine are also interested in your views. Fu Chongshan patted my shoulder, his tone genuinely appreciative. This scene hit the room like a thunderclap. There had been plenty of gossip about me being crude and useless, abandoned by the Wen family. But now, I had the favor of someone as important as Fu Chongshan. And I was about to discuss business with a group of senior industry figures. The muscles in Wen Jinbang's face twitched. He tried to interject, but Fu Chongshan gently waved him off. President Wen, you've raised a fine young man. You have a good eye. A diamond in the rough. It sounded like a compliment, but it didn't mention the Wen family's role at all. It was all about me personally. Wen Jinbang's face grew even uglier. A clear, pleasant female voice broke in. Dad, there you are. Uncle Li and the others are looking for you. Everyone turned. A young woman in a light champagne-colored dress walked over. She was beautiful, poised, like a pearl bathed in moonlight. She commanded everyone's attention instantly. It was Fu Chongshan's only daughter, Fu Qingyuan. Fu Chongshan smiled and waved her over. Qingyuan, come here. Let me introduce you. This is the young man I've been telling you about, with such sharp insights. Lu Yan. Lu Yan, this is my daughter, Fu Qingyuan. I met Fu Qingyuan's gaze and nodded slightly. Miss Fu, hello. Fu Qingyuan gracefully extended her hand with an elegant smile. Mr. Lu, I've heard a lot about you. My father rarely praises young people so highly. You must be truly exceptional. We shook hands briefly. At that moment, whatever confidence Wen Yu and Jiang Ning had left was shattered. I hadn't just gained Fu Chengshan's respect. I was also talking on equal footing with Fu Qingyuan, the woman they dreamed of currying favor with. There was only genuine curiosity and appreciation in Fu Qingyuan's eyes. No trace of contempt. Jealousy gnawed at Jiang Ning's heart. She could barely breathe. The person she had always looked down on was now standing where she could only aspire to be. When Yu sat in his wheelchair, his nails digging into his palms. His plastered leg ached. The family love and attention he had schemed to steal now seemed laughably small compared to the recognition I was getting from the Fu family. When she watched my calm profile, watched Fu Qingyuan's genuine smile, one memory after another flooded back. The harsh words, the contempt. A wave of guilt crashed over her, making it hard to breathe. When Jinbang and Shenhuira looked at each other, stunned, Fu Chongshan looked at us and smiled. You young people probably have more to talk about. Don't feel like you have to stick with us old folks. Qingyuan, why don't you take Xiaolu for a walk in the garden? It's quieter there. Fu Qingyuan readily agreed and gracefully gestured for me to follow. I nodded. Under the stares of the crowd, some shocked, some envious, some incredulous, I walked beside Fu Qingyuan out of the banquet hall and into the garden. Behind me, the Wen family and Jiang Ning stood frozen like statues. They had tried so hard to trample me into the mud. Now I had reached a height they could only dream of. Every insult they had thrown at me now came back to haunt them. The garden lights were soft and romantic. The atmosphere was private and pleasant, with the scent of flowers in the air. It was a world away from the banquet hall's noise. Fu Qingyuan turned to me, her gaze clear. My father rarely gets so enthusiastic about a junior. Last time at the coffee shop, your few words identified the core risk point in the Huaxing project. At the time, our internal team was still debating whether to keep investing. I was a little surprised. I hadn't expected Fu Chongshan to share that with his daughter. It was just a coincidence. I saw some public data, cross-referenced it, and noticed some anomalies. Mr. Fu is too generous. I checked afterward. Everything you said came true. You're impressive. Fu Qingyuan's gaze was openly appreciative. No flattery, no testing. I could tell she was different from the spoiled Jiang Ning or the manipulative Wen Yu. She was sharp, with her own independent judgment. We walked along the gravel path, talking about markets, emerging technologies, and some interdisciplinary topics. I drew on my knowledge from my previous life and combined it with what I'd learned in this world. I presented new perspectives that sparked Fu Qingyuan's interest. She asked sharp questions in return. It was a meeting of minds, regardless of background. Pure intellectual exchange. It felt good. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the banquet hall, the garden scene was framed like a picture. Jiang Ning's grip on her wine glass was so tight her knuckles were white. She gritted her teeth. Why him? Why did it have to be him? When he was pale. His hand, hidden under the blanket, was pinching his own flesh. His carefully crafted weak persona was crumbling. Jealousy coursed through him. He couldn't accept that someone from the bottom could chat so easily with Fu Qingyuan. The attention, the opportunity. It should have been his. When she watched from behind the glass, she couldn't hear the conversation. But Fu Qingyuan's genuine appreciation was unmistakable. Scenes from the past, every harsh word to me, replayed in her mind. Her face burned with shame. Wen Jinbang looked toward the garden. He finally realized something. I might not need the Wen family at all. More cruelly, the Wen family's future might depend on me. Shenhuiru was lost, unable to make sense of the situation. After a long while, Fu Qingyuan and I walked back into the main hall. She was called away by some elders. I went to get a drink. Jiangning seized the chance. She hurried over in her high heels and blocked my path. Jealousy made her voice shrill. Lu Yan, don't get too cocky. Just because you've latched onto the Fu family doesn't mean you've changed. You're still low-born trash. A cold voice cut her off. When she walked over, her face dark. This was the first time she'd ever publicly sided with me. Jiangning, watch your mouth. This is the Fu residence, not a place for your tantrums. Don't bring trouble to your family. Jiangning was stunned. She couldn't believe it. Wen Shu! You're taking his side. You're yelling at me. I'm just reminding you to watch your words. Wen Shu's tone was ice cold. Her warning glance swept over Wen Yu in his wheelchair. I raised an eyebrow, a little surprised. The eldest sister was finally starting to see things clearly. I had no intention of getting involved in their drama. I stepped around the frozen Jiangning, grabbed a glass of soda water, and moved to the terrace for some air. On the drive back, the atmosphere in the limousine was stifling. When you leaned back, eyes closed, his lashes trembling like he was suffering. Shenhuiru wanted to comfort him, but Wen Shu stopped her with a look. Wen Jinbang rubbed his temples. His voice was hoarse. A Shu, did Mr. Fu say anything else to Lu Yan? Nothing much. Just that he appreciated his insights. He asked Qingyuan to walk with him in the garden. Wen Shu stared out at the passing night scenery, then added, Mr. Fu called him Xiao Lu. Like they were familiar. Asterisk bang. Asterisk Wen Jinbang slammed his fist on the armrest. His chest heaved with frustration, regret, and shame. Shenhuiru flinched. When you opened his eyes, they were filled with tears. It's all my fault. If I hadn't caused trouble, brother wouldn't have left, and things wouldn't have gotten this bad for the family. In the past, those words would have brought comfort and sympathy. But tonight, Wen Jinbang just glanced at him with irritation and said nothing. Wen Shu looked out the window. Even Wen Man was uncharacteristically silent. A chill ran down Wen Yu's spine. Early Saturday morning, I got up as usual. I had a tutoring job in the morning and planned to hit the library in the afternoon. As I walked out of the dorm, a familiar black sedan was parked by the curb. The door opened. Wen Shu got out alone. She was dressed simply, looking tired. There was a lingering struggle in her eyes. She looked at me. Her tone wasn't commanding anymore. There was almost a hint of pleading. Let's talk. I checked my watch. I have class in 10 minutes. I don't have much time. Wen Shu took a deep breath. About last night's dinner, I'm sorry. A lot of things before. We were wrong. We misjudged you. Not misjudged. I corrected her calmly. You just believed what you wanted to see. Wen Shu's face burned. She had no response. Father wants you to come home. He says the allowance can be increased. If you don't like your major, you can switch, or he can send you abroad to study. The family will support you. You're still a Wen family son. I almost laughed. I repeated the phrase, Wen family son, with faint sarcasm. Wen Shu looked so embarrassed she wanted to disappear. Tell Mr. Wen Jinbang this. He values his connection with Fu Chongshan. He wants to buy me with money and favors. But money, future connections, I can earn all of them myself. The best compensation you can give me is to stay away. With that, I didn't look back at her pale face. I turned and walked away. When Shu stood there, watching my straight, determined back disappear into the crowd on campus, she finally understood completely. I wasn't angry and leaving. I had never intended to return to the One family from the start. Everything they saw as a generous gift was worthless in my eyes. Back in the car, when you immediately asked, "Did he agree to come home?" Father said we could negotiate terms. When Shu shook her head slowly, her voice hollow. "He's not coming back." "Why not?" When you yelped. "Because everything we have to offer, he doesn't want. Too much damage has been done. It can't be fixed." When Shu closed her eyes, exhausted. Some things are only valued after they're lost. Some damage, once done, can never be undone. I put the One family out of my mind and headed to my tutoring job. The student's mother was very kind. She handed me a bottle of water and kept praising me for being patient and for her child's improvement in grades. The respect I earned through my own abilities was simple and solid.